Story time! So yesterday my friends and I all went to the fair and there were 6 of us in total. And none of us wanted to have to worry about driving there and parking, so we just Ubered instead. So we left the fair around 11:15 and we walked to a nearby shopping center where the Uber picked us up about 10 minutes late. We ended up leaving at 11:30. We get in the Uber, the man says hello, and we head home the normal way. Everything's fine. And my parents don't like when I Uber, so they were tracking me on Life 360 from the moment I got in the car. After about 10 minutes in, I get a text from my mom, and it said, "Where are you?" I look up from my phone and I realize I have no idea where we are, and Ubers know their directions, they know how to take you home. We were 20 minutes out of the way. So I'm terrified. My mom's texting me nonstop, literally about to call the police. I'm gonna run out of time, but posting part 2 today. Okay, back to the Uber story. Our parents are freaking out, we're texting each other in our group chat so he doesn't hear us. Also, while this is all happening, he wasn't talking to us, but he had an earbud in, and he was talking to someone on the phone really quietly. It was super creepy. My mom starts calling me again, and he hears the ring. And one of my friends pulled up on her phone the directions to get home, which he also heard, so he knew that we thought something was off. After a little while longer, we finally know where we are, so we feel a little bit better. We were getting really close to the turn that goes into my friend's neighborhood, and we were thinking, if he doesn't make this turn, we're screwed. Thank goodness he makes a turn and we're back at my friend's house. But the scary thing is what if he was planning something, but since our phones were ringing and we had the GPS up, that he changed his mind? Because we were not going home. I still can't stop thinking about it. This is the one time Life 360 has come in handy. We're all safe now.
Crazy ass story time. 23 years ago, there was this mother of 2 children who just recently had a 3rd child. Soon after, the newborn baby was sleeping in the nursery while they were throwing a house party, and unfortunately, during the party, the house caught on fire. Everyone scrambles out of the house and they couldn't get to the baby, and then the cops concluded that the baby had died in the fire. But her other 2 kids made it out alive. And even though the cops told her that her baby had died, she refused to believe it. Many years later, the mother took her 2 children to a birthday party, and there was this other woman there with her child. And now the mother looks at that child and is in shock because she looks so much like her other 2 kids. She goes up to the little girl and says that she has bubble gum in her hair so that she can steal a few strands of her hair. She took it to a lab and they DNA tested it, and that little girl was her child. So it turns out many years ago during that house party, a woman that the mother knew went upstairs, took the baby, and started the fire so that the baby would be declared as dead and she could easily get away with kidnapping her. And then she ran from the cops and they can't find her.
I literally want to cry. So if you didn't know, I have a sister and her name's Ashley, and we both have boyfriends. And every night we both fall asleep on the phone with our boyfriends. So one day we're all hanging out and we're like just talking, and my sister's boyfriend looks at me and he's like, "You need to stop going into your sister's room in the middle of the night." And I look at him and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't have a reason to go into her room. Like I don't go into her room, especially in the middle of the night." Then my boyfriend hops in the conversation and he's like, no. He's like, "No, I hear Ashley go into Kayla's room every night and stare at her." So me and my sister both look at each other and we're like, we don't go into each other's rooms, do we? And we agreed that we do not. And they said this has been going on for months. So for months, somebody or something has been going into me and my sister's room for about 15 minutes every night and watching us sleep. But it only gets worse.
My husband and I were expecting our first daughter, and he suggested the name Tiffany, and I fell in love. When I asked what made him pick it, he said he saw it in a movie. I didn't think much of it, and so a couple weeks later, I called my sister-in-law to let her know we're going to name our daughter Tiffany. She was super surprised because she said she never wanted to name her child after her husband's high school girlfriend. I was really confused, but then she told me that they were together from sophomore year of high school to junior year of college. I knew he had a long-term relationship, but I never knew the girl's name. After hanging up, I confronted my husband, and he tried blowing it off at first, but eventually admitted that it was true. I told him I'm refusing to name my daughter after his ex-girlfriend, and he told me it's too late, I'm overreacting, and I can't change my mind since I'm only due in 5 more weeks. I basically cried to get as much information as I can when he finally told me that she had contacted him because she was getting married and was having second thoughts. My husband admitted that talking to her made him realize he never stopped having feelings for her, but he loved me too. The reason he suggested the name was because he knew he couldn't leave me to be with her, so he wanted something to honor her with. What do I do?
This girl took a picture of me when I was using the bathroom. Story time. So right after we got evacuated, I took my cute self to the stove because your girl needed the essentials, water, deodorant, all that good stuff. While I was looking for all the things I need, I realized your girl has to go boom boom. Just kidding, I just had to pee too. Well, anyways, I was in the bathroom doing my thing, and then randomly someone comes in there and they start busting open all the stall doors. Keep in mind, I was in there by myself, and I was just sitting there doing my business like, okay, what's going on? So this person gets to my stall and they try to bust the door open. But your girl made sure she locked that stall door. Then this person starts shaking the door from the top. Like I'm just sitting here on the toilet and I see someone's hands reach over and try to shake the stall door. I was pretty freaked out, not gonna lie. So I wrapped it up, and as I was buttoning my pants, I see someone's phone come from underneath the stall door. Then I hear the camera noise. This bitch really took a picture of me. Part 2 is about to take a weird turn.
When I was 16 years old, my dad almost shot me. Here's the story. It was the last summer night before junior year, so naturally, I was at a friend's house partying. I told my dad that I was at my best friend's house. I wasn't. But I was actually at my friend's house with my friend group. They ran out of alcohol, and the only person who had alcohol was me, in my room at home. My dad is a very light sleeper, and he's also kind of strict. So it took them about an hour to convince me to drive all the way back to my house, sneak in my house, and steal my alcohol and leave. I say sneak in because I wouldn't want to wake up my dad and then have him question me why I'm home and then look through my bag. 4 of my friends and I got in my car and we drove to my house. We parked outside my house with no headlights on, no nothing. My friend Zach and I went to the back of my house to sneak into the window that is always open. And the rest of my friends stayed in the car. The problem with the window is that it's super squeaky. We sat there trying to open the window for 5 minutes, very slowly so it wouldn't make any noise. So we finally get the window halfway open so that I can fit my body through it. Half of my body is out the window and the other half is swung over into my family room. I am so close to getting inside, and then my dad wakes up and I hear, "Who's there?" Followed by a light for part 2.
Storytime, how I found out my substitute teacher was actually my biological father. So of course I went to school for our usual class and our teacher wasn't there. So we had a substitute that day, and I could have sworn that I recognized him, but I couldn't tell from where. There would be times during the lecture where I would look up and he would just be looking at me. I felt like there was a weird connection between the two of us, but I didn't exactly know where to place it. Since it was the last hour of the day, he asked me to stay after class. I immediately got the creeps and said no, I had to catch my bus. And I hadn't seen him for weeks after that. Some days later, I noticed a for sale sign on my neighbor's yard. So during their open house, I decided to peek out my window and see who was visiting. And there he was, my substitute teacher. I got the creeps and I just ran upstairs to focus on something else. Once the house sold and the move-in trucks came in, I saw that it was my substitute teacher that actually bought it. I was terrified but still felt this weird connection. That's when my mom offered for us to bring cookies over to his house. She said it was the neighborly thing to do, so that's what we did. So we went to go knock on his door.
In high school, I had a friend who lived in this old, small apartment building. And on the first floor was this old guy named Dave who had apparently lived in the building forever. And no one really knew what Dave's deal was. The only time people saw him is when he walked outside to walk his tiny dog. But other than that, he never left his apartment. He had a nephew who delivered him groceries once a week. My friend just assumed that Dave was too old or had some sort of sickness that prevented him from leaving the house. One day, my friend was coming home from school and Dave's nephew was leaving the apartment building. And my friend is really sweet, so she was like, "Hey, I know Dave sometimes has troubles getting out of the house, so if you ever need me to go over there and bring him something, let me know. I'm always happy to help." And the nephew looked really shocked and terrified. He was like, "No, you should never go over to Dave's ever." And then he got really awkward and he was like, "Okay, gotta go, bye." And then a few weeks later, my friend was coming home from a Halloween party late at night. And when she got inside her apartment building, Dave's door on the first floor was wide open. And it was pitch black inside his apartment. But then she heard something behind her.
So my class got let out a little early, so I decided to go to Dunkin' to grab something to eat before I have another class and then work and everything. But I haven't eaten today, so I'm a little hangry. So I'm more irritable than usual. And as I was getting to the door, somebody else was coming out, and their hand was like on the handle. So I was like, okay, let me move out of the way. So I moved to the side, and then they moved to the side. And I was like, oh, okay. So I reached to the door handle, and then they reached for it again. So I moved back again, and they moved back again. So I was like, come on, you can come through. And they said the same thing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to open the door. They're going to come in or come out. They're going to get out of my way so I can go eat. So I reached for the door handle and they reached for it too. And I was like, no, I'm just yanking this door. I am opening it, not them. End of story. So I opened the door and nobody's there. And then I closed the door again and realized I have been arguing with my reflection in the glass this whole time.
So my house is super fucking paranormal, and this is the first incident I had. So in 6th grade, I had 3 friends over and we were playing hide and go seek. So I hid in the pantry and there's no way anybody could hear me. There's no vents and I wasn't even talking. So I'm sitting there like, cause I wanted to win the fuck. So I'm sitting in there and 10 minutes pass and I hear my friends talking downstairs. So I go down there and I'm like, did y'all give up? And they look at me and they're like, we thought you were in the crawl space. I was like, no. They were like, no, we were literally talking to somebody in the crawl space. And they said like it was this little girl like asking for help and shit. So I get freaked out and I'm like looking around, I'm like, what the fuck? And around 2 minutes later, the doorknob to the crawl space starts going like this, like shaking and shit. So I literally had a heart attack and I was like, okay, we're leaving. So we grabbed all of our shit, we grabbed my dog and we went in front of the house. I called my dad crying. I was like, there's something in this fucking house. And he was like, no, the fuck there's not. So he gets home, he checks the house, he's like, y'all are stupid, like there's no shit here. But we all heard it and we all saw the doorknob shake. And it only got worse from then.
So it's Friday night, it's Roxy's birthday weekend, and we're all going to her house for the first time ever for our group sleepover. So we get there, and honestly, everything seemed really normal at first. Roxy's house was really nice, and honestly, I was confused why she never wanted us there before. So then we start making banana bread, and all of a sudden, Laura jumps and screams and runs to the other side of the kitchen. She's like, did you guys feel that? And we're all like, what are you talking about, Laura? She's like, I swear something just touched my lower back. And Laura's face turned really pale, like she was genuinely scared. And we spend the next hour convincing her that no one was there, no one touched her back. So then we start watching a movie, Disturbia. Shout out to Shia LaBeouf. And Nina goes to the bathroom. And when she comes back, she's like, Roxy, it looks like something upstairs is maybe leaking because there's this massive wet stain on your bathroom wall. And Roxy's like, oh, don't worry, that stain's always there. She's like, we actually can't figure out where it's coming from. We've had plumbers come and they can't figure it out either. There's no drain or pipe or anything that could be causing a leak at that part of the house anyway. And then Roxy says, but that's why we think our house is haunted. We all look at her kind of shocked and she's like, yeah, that's why I never invited you guys to sleep over because it can get kind of creepy. But honestly, at that point, I wasn't that creeped out until we went to bed because that's when